You're now watching Office Revenge Hub. Stay tuned.
My boss cheated me out of a promotion I'd earned, and when I finally turned the tables, he never saw it coming. My name is Marcus, and I was a project manager at a construction management firm called Build Right Solutions. I worked there for 6 years, managing multi-million-dollar commercial projects, while my boss took credit for every success and blamed me for every setback. I thought loyalty would eventually be rewarded. I was devastatingly wrong. Build Right Solutions was a mid-sized construction management company in Phoenix, handling office buildings, retail centers, and industrial facilities across the Southwest. When I started, fresh out of my master's degree in construction management, I was eager to prove myself in an industry known for being tough, competitive, and unforgiving. I was hired as an assistant project manager, just working under a senior PM named Douglas Carver. Doug was in his mid-50s, a career construction guy who'd worked his way up from the field. He had connections, experience, and a reputation for delivering projects on time and under budget. He also had a massive ego and a talent for taking credit for other people's work. My role was supposed to be learning the ropes while supporting Doug on major projects. In reality, I did most of the actual project management, while Doug handled client relationships and executive reporting. I coordinated subcontractors, managed schedules, solved problems on site, negotiated with vendors, and kept everything running smoothly. Doug would swoop in for client meetings, present my work as his own, and collect the accolades. I told myself it was part of paying dues, that this was how the industry worked, and that eventually my contributions would be recognized. I was building skills and experience. My time would come. The first major project I managed under Doug was a 4-story office building for a tech company. The budget was $12 million and the timeline was aggressive. Doug had sold the client on an ambitious schedule that most of the team thought was impossible. I made it happen. I worked 70-hour weeks coordinating trades, managing material deliveries, solving design conflicts, and pushing the schedule forward. When weather delayed the foundation work, I reorganized the entire construction sequence to keep us on track. When the steel supplier had delivery issues, I found an alternative source and negotiated better pricing. When the client requested mid-project design changes, and I managed the change orders and kept the budget intact. We finished 2 weeks early and 3% under budget. The client was thrilled. Doug presented the project at our company's quarterly meeting as a masterclass in project management. He showed slides I'd created, discussed strategies I'd developed, and accepted congratulations from the executive team. My name appeared once in small text on the final slide listing project team members. I was frustrated, but I convinced myself that Doug's success was my success. He was my mentor. His reputation reflected well on me. This was how careers were built. I was naive. Over the next 4 years, the pattern repeated. I managed increasingly complex projects, while Doug took the credit. A retail center that came in under budget because of my value engineering work, an industrial warehouse that finished early despite major permitting challenges I'd navigated, a mixed-use development that won an industry award for my innovative scheduling approach. Every success had my fingerprints all over it, but Doug's name on the presentation. Every client relationship I built became Doug's relationship in the eyes of management. Every problem I solved became an example of Doug's leadership and experience. I kept waiting for recognition that never came, kept thinking that eventually someone would notice the disconnect between Doug's talking and my doing, kept believing that hard work and results would speak for themselves. The company started growing aggressively in my 5th year. We were winning larger projects, expanding into new markets, hiring more staff. The executive team created a new position, as Director of Project Management to oversee all our senior project managers and standardize our processes across the company. It was a significant role, a major step up in responsibility and compensation. More importantly, it was the kind of position that could define a career trajectory. The person who got it would be positioned for VP level roles, maybe eventually running operations for the entire company. I wanted it desperately. I'd been doing director level work for years while holding a project manager title. I'd managed the company's largest and most complex projects successfully. I had the skills, the track record, and the relationships with clients and subcontractors. Doug encouraged me to apply. He told me I'd be a strong candidate, that he'd put in a good word with the executive team, now that my work on recent projects had positioned me perfectly for the role. I believed him. I spent weeks preparing my application, documenting my project successes, gathering endorsements from clients and subcontractors, creating a presentation about my vision for standardizing project management across the company. I poured everything I had into making the strongest case possible. The interview process was extensive. I met with the CEO, the COO, and the VP of operations. I presented my vision, discussed my track record, answered tough questions about leadership and strategy. I felt good about it, not overconfident, but genuinely hopeful that I'd made a strong case. 2 weeks after my final interview, the CEO called an all-hands meeting to announce the new Director of Project Management. It was Doug. I sat in that conference room, stunned, as they announced that Doug Carver, with his extensive experience and proven track record of delivering exceptional projects, would be taking on this expanded leadership role. Doug stood up and gave a speech about his vision for the department, hitting the exact talking points I'd presented in my interview. He talked about standardizing processes, improving communication, leveraging technology, developing talent. My words coming out of his mouth. After the meeting, people congratulated Doug, slapped him on the back, told him how well-deserved the promotion was. I stood there, numb, watching the man who'd stolen credit for my work for 6 years get rewarded with the position I'd earned. Doug found me in my office later that afternoon. "Marcus, I want you to know you were a strong candidate. When it was a close decision." "Was it?" "Absolutely." But the executive team felt that my experience and relationships gave me an edge. "I'm going to need your help making this transition successful. You'll be my right hand in this new role." There it was. He'd stolen my promotion, and now he expected me to keep doing the work while he collected an even bigger title and salary. I presented a vision for this role in my interview, I said carefully. "The speech you just gave hit a lot of the same points." Doug smiled. "Great minds think alike. I think we're very aligned on where the department needs to go. That's why I need you on my team." He wasn't even trying to hide it. He'd taken my ideas, presented them as his own, and used them to win the promotion I deserved. "I'll need some time to process this," I said. "Of course. Take the afternoon, but I'll need you in tomorrow morning. We have a lot of work to do." He left, and I sat in my office feeling like I'd been punched in the stomach. 6 years of work, 6 years of delivering results while someone else took credit. And now this. I went home early and didn't tell my wife, Eleanor, what had happened. I couldn't talk about it yet. I just sat on our back patio and stared at nothing, trying to make sense of how thoroughly I'd been played. The next few weeks were the hardest of my professional life. I had to watch Doug transition into the director role using strategies and processes I'd developed. I had to attend meetings where he presented my ideas as his own. I had to smile and nod while he took credit for systems I'd created. The financial sting was severe. Now the director role came with a 40% salary increase. That money would have changed my life. Elena and I had been trying to start a family, but we'd been holding off because of financial concerns. The promotion would have given us the stability we needed. Now it was gone. Worse than the money was the betrayal. I'd trusted Doug. I'd worked for him, with him, under him for 6 years. I'd believed he was mentoring me, preparing me for bigger opportunities. Instead, he'd been using me, leveraging my work to build his own career while ensuring I stayed beneath him. I started having panic attacks at work. I'd be sitting in meetings and suddenly couldn't breathe, convinced everyone could see what a fool I'd been, how thoroughly I'd been taken advantage of. I'd leave early, claiming I had site visits, and sit in my car in parking lots. I'm trying to calm down. Eleanor noticed I was struggling. She'd ask what was wrong, and I'd brush it off, claim I was stressed about a project, change the subject. I was ashamed to admit what had happened, ashamed that I'd been so naive, ashamed that I'd let someone exploit me for 6 years without standing up for myself. I stopped sleeping well. I'd lie awake replaying every project, every presentation, every moment when I should have demanded credit, should have gone directly to executives, should have documented my contributions more publicly. The regret was suffocating. I thought about quitting, about walking away and finding another company where I could start fresh, where nobody knew me as Doug's assistant, where I could build a reputation based on my actual contributions. But I had a mortgage, bills, responsibilities now, and part of me knew that running away wouldn't fix the fundamental problem. I'd still be the person who'd allowed himself to be exploited for 6 years. 2 months after Doug's promotion, I was managing a challenging renovation project, converting an old warehouse into creative office space. The project had complex structural issues, tight permitting requirements, and an aggressive budget. It was exactly the kind of project I'd succeeded on before. Doug scheduled weekly check-ins with me to review progress. In reality, he was downloading information he could present to executives as evidence of his effective leadership. I'd explain challenges and solutions, and he'd nod thoughtfully, then present those exact solutions in his director updates as examples of his strategic thinking. During one of these meetings, Doug mentioned that the company was pursuing a major project, a 15-story mixed-use development downtown that would be our largest project ever. The client was interviewing construction and management firms, and BuildRight was one of 3 finalists. "If we land this, it'll define the company's next 5 years," Doug said. "I'm leading the pitch. I'll need you to help prepare the proposal and presentation." Of course he did. He needed me to do the actual work so he could present it as his leadership. "What's the timeline?" I asked. "Proposal due in 3 weeks, presentation 2 weeks after that if we make the shortlist." I went through the motions helping Doug prepare, but something had shifted inside me. I was done being exploited, done watching someone else benefit from my work, and done playing the loyal soldier while getting nothing in return. I started making a plan, quietly, carefully, not driven by anger, but by cold, strategic thinking about how to extract myself from this situation and build something better. The turning point came during a conversation with Eleanor. I'd finally told her what had happened with the promotion, and she'd been furious on my behalf. "Why are you still there?" she asked. "Why are you still helping him?" "Because I don't have another option yet." "Then create one. You've been managing major projects successfully for 6 years. You have client relationships, subcontractor relationships, industry knowledge. Why do you need BuildRight?" It was a simple question that I'd been avoiding asking myself. Why did I need BuildRight? What were they giving me other than a paycheck and a platform for Doug to exploit my work? I started researching what it would take to start my own construction management firm. The barriers were significant but not insurmountable. I'd need professional licenses, insurance, initial operating capital, and clients. I had the licenses already. Insurance was expensive but manageable. Capital could come from savings and a small business loan. Clients were the real challenge, but I had relationships. 6 years of managing projects meant I'd worked with dozens of subcontractors, vendors, and client representatives, people who'd seen my work directly, who knew I was the one actually delivering results, who might be willing to work with me independently. I started reaching out carefully. Now, coffee meetings with subcontractors I'd worked with for years. Lunch with former client project managers who'd moved to other companies. Casual conversations about the industry, about trends, about challenges. Not asking for anything directly, just rebuilding relationships that Doug had claimed as his own. The response was illuminating. People assumed I'd been promoted to director. When I clarified that Doug had gotten the position, several people were genuinely surprised. "But you ran all those projects," one subcontractor said. "Doug barely showed up on site." "Doug's good at presentations," I said carefully. "I'm better at execution. If you ever go out on your own, call me. I'd work with you over Build Right any day." I heard variations of that sentiment from multiple people. They knew who actually did the work. They knew Doug was the talker and I was the doer. They'd work with me if I gave them the option. I spent 3 months planning while still working at Build Right. I saved aggressively, cutting every unnecessary expense. I researched business structures, insurance requirements, and bonding processes. I developed a business plan for a construction management firm that would compete directly with Build Right, but focus on smaller, more complex projects where relationships and execution mattered more than corporate infrastructure. I registered the business, secured insurance, and set up basic operations. I didn't resign from Build Right yet. I needed one more thing. I needed a client who would take a chance on a new firm led by someone they trusted. That opportunity came from an unexpected source. One of the clients from a project I'd managed 3 years earlier reached out directly to me. They were planning a new office expansion and wanted Build Right to manage it. They specifically requested me as the project manager. I met with them to discuss the project. It was perfect for my new firm. Medium complexity, $7 million budget, tight schedule, and a client who valued execution over corporate reputation. "I appreciate you thinking of me," I told them, "but I need to disclose something. I'm leaving Build Right soon to start my own construction management firm. If you want me to manage this project, I can do it through my new company, but I understand if you'd prefer to stick with a more established firm." The client, a real estate developer named Patricia Chen, considered this for a moment. Would you have the same access to subcontractors and vendors?" "Better access, actually. I've built those relationships directly over the past 6 years. They know my work." "Would you carry the same insurance and bonding?" "Yes, I've already secured that." "Then I don't care about the company name. I care about who's actually managing my project. If that's you, then I'm in." I had my first client, a $7 million project that would launch my firm and prove I could compete directly with Build Right. I gave Build Right 2 weeks' notice the next day. I was professional, expressing gratitude for the opportunity while explaining I was pursuing a new direction. I didn't mention that I was starting a competing firm. I'd let them figure that out later. Doug called me into his office immediately. "Marcus, what's this about? Did someone poach you?" "No, I'm starting my own firm." His expression shifted from concerned to calculating. "Your own firm? Marcus, that's a huge risk. You don't have the corporate infrastructure, the bonding capacity, the brand recognition. You'll struggle to win projects." "I appreciate your concern, but I've already secured my first client." "Who?" I named Patricia Chen's company. I watched Doug's face as he realized what that meant. They'd been expecting that project. They'd been counting on it. That client specifically requested you through BuildRight, Doug said slowly. You stole our client. The client requested me personally. I disclosed that I was leaving BuildRight and starting my own firm. They chose to work with me independently. That's not stealing. That's a client choosing their service provider. Doug's friendly mentor act vanished. This is completely unprofessional. You used BuildRight's relationships to benefit yourself. I built those relationships myself through 6 years of actual project work while you took credit. Those subcontractors, vendors, and clients know who actually delivered results. Now they get to choose who they want to work with. If you think you can compete with an established firm using our processes and contacts, you're delusional. I guess we'll see. I finished my 2 weeks and walked out of BuildRight Solutions for the last time. I'd spent 6 years there, built their largest projects, developed their best client relationships, and received almost nothing in return. Now I was going to build something of my own. While the first 6 months of running my own firm were terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure, I worked from a small office space, managing the Patricia Chen project while simultaneously trying to win additional work. Money was tight. I was covering business expenses, personal expenses, and trying to build cash reserves. Elena went back to work full-time to help with income stability. But the Patricia Chen project went beautifully. I managed it with the same thoroughness and attention to detail I'd brought to BuildRight projects. But now I controlled the narrative. When we hit challenges, I solved them and got the credit directly. When we achieved successes, the client knew exactly who was responsible. Patricia was thrilled with the progress. She referred me to 2 other developers in her network. By month 8, when I had 3 active projects and a pipeline of potential work, I stayed lean, hiring contractors rather than full-time employees, keeping overhead low, focusing on execution quality over growth metrics. I built a reputation for delivering complex projects successfully without the corporate overhead and bureaucracy of larger firms. Word spread in the Phoenix construction community. The project managers and clients who'd worked with me at BuildRight started reaching out. They'd heard I was independent now. They had projects that might be a good fit. Could we talk? Some of these were projects BuildRight had been pursuing. Clients who'd worked with both of us before and preferred my approach. I won some of those projects, not by undercutting price, but by demonstrating I could deliver better results through direct involvement and accountability. BuildRight noticed. About a year after I left, I heard through the grapevine that Doug was telling people I'd violated my employment agreement by stealing clients and using proprietary processes. It was nonsense legally. I'd built relationships through legitimate work, and I'd taken no proprietary information when I left, but it signaled that I was becoming enough of a competitive threat to bother them. 18 months after starting my firm, I was managing 6 active projects with a combined value of $43 million. I'd hired 3 full-time project managers, all people I'd worked with before, who wanted to join a company that valued execution over politics. We were profitable, growing sustainably, and building a reputation for quality that was winning us projects against larger, more established competitors. I heard that BuildRight was struggling. They'd lost several major clients, including 2 who'd specifically cited concerns about project management quality after I left. Doug's director role hadn't transformed the department the way he'd promised. Without me doing the actual work while he took credit, his limitations were becoming obvious. The real payoff came 2 years after leaving BuildRight. Patricia Chen's company was planning their largest project ever, a 20-story mixed-use development in downtown Phoenix worth over $100 million. It was exactly the kind of signature project that could define a construction management firm. BuildRight was one of the firms invited to propose, So was my firm. I knew we were the underdog. Build Right had corporate resources, bonding capacity, and established processes for projects this size. My firm was smaller, newer, less proven at this scale. But I also knew we had something Build Right didn't. We had Patricia's trust, earned through successful execution of 3 projects together. I prepared the most thorough proposal of my career. I assembled a dream team of project managers and superintendents. I presented a detailed approach that demonstrated intimate knowledge of Patricia's priorities and concerns. I showed exactly how we'd deliver this project successfully, backed by track records from our previous work together. Build Right's proposal was led by Doug. I wasn't there for their presentation, but I heard later that he'd relied heavily on corporate credentials and past project history, and much of it projects I'd actually managed while working there. 2 weeks after final presentations, Patricia called me. "Marcus, we're awarding you the project. Your proposal was significantly stronger. Your team is proven, and frankly, we trust you to deliver in ways we don't trust the corporate firms." It was the validation I'd been working toward for 8 years, not just winning a major project, but winning it directly against the firm that had exploited me, against the boss who'd stolen my credit and my promotion, against a system that had treated me as disposable. The news spread quickly through Phoenix's construction community. A 2-year-old firm led by a former Build Right project manager had won a $100 million project over established competitors. It was the kind of story that got attention. And I got a call from Doug 3 days after the award announcement. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won out. "Marcus, congratulations on the Patricia Chen project," he said. His voice was tight, professional, but barely concealing anger. "Thank you, Doug. I want you to know that win was based on a personal relationship rather than objective qualifications. Build Right is the more experienced firm for a project that size." Patricia evaluated both proposals and chose the firm she trusted to deliver. That's how client decisions work. You've built your entire firm by exploiting relationships you developed while working for us. I built relationships through 6 years of excellent work you took credit for while I was there. Now clients get to choose who they actually want managing their projects. They're choosing the person who did the work rather than the person who presented it. Silence on the line, then Doug spoke again, his voice lower. "You're still bitter about the director position." "I'm not bitter, Doug. I'm grateful. Getting passed over for that promotion was the best thing that ever happened to me. It forced me to stop waiting for recognition from people who were never going to give it and start building something of my own." "You won't be able to sustain this. You'll hit challenges you can't handle without corporate resources." "Maybe, but I'd rather fail trying to build something real than succeed by taking credit for other people's work. We're different that way." I hung up before he could respond. The $100 million project was the hardest thing I'd ever managed. The scale was massive, the complexity enormous, the stakes incredibly high. There were moments when I questioned whether I'd overreached, whether Doug had been right that I'd need corporate infrastructure to handle something this big. But my team delivered. We hit every milestone. We managed challenges proactively. We kept the client informed and confident. We proved that a smaller firm with the right people and approach could execute at the highest level. 3 years into the project, Build Right was sold to a national construction management conglomerate. The sale was positioned as a growth opportunity, but everyone in the industry knew it was a rescue. They'd been losing market share, struggling with project execution, and bleeding clients. The acquisition was their exit strategy. Doug left during the transition. When I heard he'd taken a job with another firm in a different city, a step down from his director role at Build Right. His reputation had suffered as the gap between his presentations and actual results became increasingly obvious. I didn't gloat, I didn't reach out. I just kept building my firm, project by project, relationship by relationship, proving every day that substance eventually beats style, that execution beats presentation, that the people who do the actual work create lasting value, while the credit takers eventually get exposed. 4 years after leaving BuildRight, my firm was managing over $200 million in active projects. We'd grown to 15 employees, all carefully selected people who valued quality work and honest collaboration. Yet we'd developed a reputation as the firm you hired when you wanted complex projects executed correctly rather than projects sold smoothly and delivered poorly. Eleanor and I had our first child, a daughter we named Sophia. The financial stability my business provided meant Elena could take extended parental leave without stress. We bought a house with a yard. We built the life we'd been putting off when I was waiting for recognition at BuildRight that never came. I thought about Doug occasionally, about the 6 years I'd spent working for someone who saw me as a tool rather than a person. I could have been angry, could have carried that betrayal as a wound. Instead, I chose to see it as education. I learned that loyalty to companies or individuals who don't reciprocate is wasted energy. I learned that waiting for recognition from people who benefit from denying it is futile. I learned that the only security worth having is the security you build yourself through competence, relationships, and independence. Most importantly, I learned that the best revenge isn't destruction or exposure, it's success. Building something that proves your value more clearly than any argument ever could. Becoming the person who succeeds on their own terms, rather than waiting for permission from people who are never going to grant it. 5 years after leaving BuildRight, I was invited to speak at a construction management conference about building successful small firms. The audience was full of project managers from larger companies, people who looked a lot like I had 6 years earlier, working hard, delivering results, and watching others take credit. During the Q&A, someone asked how I'd made the jump from corporate employee to business owner. I was cheated, I said simply. My boss took credit for my work for 6 years, then took the promotion I'd earned. That betrayal forced me to decide whether to keep waiting for people who didn't value me to suddenly change, or to start building something where my contributions couldn't be stolen. I chose to build. Do you regret not fighting for the promotion? Another person asked. No. Fighting would have meant staying in a system designed to benefit people like my boss. Leaving meant building a system designed to benefit people who actually do the work. That's a better fight. After the session, dozens of people approached me with similar stories. Bosses who took credit, in promotions that went to less qualified candidates, years of work that seemed invisible to management. They all wanted to know the same thing. How did you find the courage to leave? I told them the truth. It wasn't courage, it was desperation. It was realizing that staying hurt more than the uncertainty of leaving. It was understanding that the security I thought I had was an illusion. And real security only comes from building something that can't be taken away by someone else's decisions. Some of them would leave their situations and build something new. Some would stay and keep hoping for recognition. I didn't judge either choice. Everyone's circumstances are different. But I hoped my story gave them permission to consider that there might be better options than enduring indefinitely. What the tables turned not through dramatic confrontation or public exposure. They turned through patient, strategic building of an alternative. Through proving that the person who'd been dismissed as merely Doug's assistant could win major projects and build a successful firm, through demonstrating that clients valued execution over presentation, substance over style, reliability over corporate credentials. Doug thought he was irreplaceable. He thought his connections and experience made him essential. He learned that what made projects successful wasn't his presentations or his executive relationships. It was the actual work. The work I'd been doing all along. When that work wasn't there anymore, his limitations became obvious. When clients had the choice between working with him or working with me directly, they chose me. Not because I was better at selling or presenting, but because they trusted me to actually deliver. That's the lesson I carry forward. In any relationship, professional or personal, if someone needs you more than you need them but acts like the opposite is true, they're exploiting the power imbalance. The solution isn't to beg for better treatment. It's to change the power dynamic by building alternatives they can't control. My boss cheated me out of recognition, credit, and promotion for 6 years. I turned the tables by building a business that proved my value more clearly than any promotion ever could, by winning clients who chose me over him directly, by creating success that couldn't be stolen or dismissed. The revenge was quiet, professional, and built on the same foundation that made me successful at BuildRight. Hard work, my thorough execution, strong relationships, and genuine care about delivering results. The only difference was that now those qualities benefited me directly, instead of someone who saw them as resources to exploit. That's how you turn the tables, not through anger or destruction, but through building something better and letting results speak louder than any accusation or confrontation ever could. If you've ever been betrayed at work, you're not alone. Where are you watching from right now? Drop it in the comments. Subscribe to Office Revenge Hub for more powerful workplace revenge stories.